So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we are then using the Aramaic English translation of the word, and the manuscripts used is from the prophets of Yahweh, from the prophets of Israel, from the time of the prophets, and mostly we find a lot of information from Yirmiyahu, known as Isaiah. Isaiah is a Gentile name. His name is Yirmiyahu, the 61st chapter, where you find then the layers very importantly placed step by step. And then you find the 61st chapter, this first section of it, the Messiah then completed the spring feast, and then the second section of it related with the autumn feast. That's why the Messiah did not read in a temple after he read only the section related with the spring feast, and then the vengeance section of the prophecy he did not read it, because related with autumn feast. So then, a person may ask, how many days yet or many years are left of this age? It is truly 18 years. 10 years plus 8. Without the reduction. So this is as many years as we can have related with the prophecy without the reduction. The Messiah said in the 24th chapter of the Levite Metityahu, when you are reading the Gospels, you are not reading the Gospels truly. You are reading Spring Feast. You have the Spring Feast and Autumn Feast. When you read the second section of it in Galah or Revelation, you are reading Autumn Feast. So then, when you read Spring Feast, Levite, Metityahu, you read in the 24th chapter the Messiah explaining, if those days were not reduced, then the elect would not be saved. What is he saying is this: he's going to reduce the time so the elect or the selected, set apart, or Hebrews, they return to the holy services. Because we are during the time of the Second Tabernacle services restoration period. Where do we find these? Very importantly, 61st chapter of Yirmiyahu. And then the cities laid waste for many centuries. Those cities are the cities of the Messiah. Yirmiyahu the prophet was explaining these areas centuries prior of the spring feast's completion. The people of his time did not even understand what he was talking about. He was saying special words of completion of the spring feast. He was explaining then the areas of the restoration period with very important Hebrew completion words, and they were not even recorded. And then, as we know, Yirmiyahu was taken out of the area of the Kidron, and he was sawn in half. This is what Yirmiyahu got for being obedient, because people of his time were ignorant. And then the Messiah himself stated in a very important parable related with Abraham and then the person that was having trials during the life versus the rich person. The rich person then after death went to Sheol, the first death, and the Messiah then depicts then a person who trialed the entire life and was in the bosom of Abraham. Then the Messiah was explaining the areas of this specific point where then his people, when they are obedient, they are saved. So then the Messiah is explaining many areas of the Torah related with the spring feast. Spring feast and autumn feast. We have maximum of 18 years left of this age. And then the situation is this. While then the Messiah was explaining of Abraham, explaining of the man that was during his entire life, trialing during his entire life, versus the rich person that had the conveniences of life. Then he is explaining many areas of these areas of torment, where then there is no second chance to those who are dying going to Sheol. So then the Mashiach in the 24th chapter, maybe we should read later, but then there are sections of it very important mentioning, because these areas are obviously related with how you calculate the time yet left. We understand then the time when the Mashiach spent with the Samaritans, he spent 2 days. 2 days were Yom days. He was doing a very important task during the time of Earth's history. He was completing the spring feast, once in a lifetime of the earth. He was the promised prophet from Moshe. He spent 2 days with the Samaritans. It was calculated the Messiah was born 4999 because of the time of the great star recorded. And then these days we find via the reversal of the lunar view of every month. The computer calculated the time. Then there is also the census, and the computer was able also to make these readings, and there were eclipses, lunar eclipses, where they were able to find the Messiah was born, obviously, in the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles. Thus the Messiah came and tabernacled with his people. So the focus of the entire understanding of the spring feast and then autumn feast relates with tabernacling. Another section of it is related with the temple. Is the third temple going to be rebuilt? No, it's not going to be rebuilt. And there are reasons why the temple is not going to be rebuilt. Let's read first what Yohanan wrote on Hebrews. Hebrews is, in fact, not Hebrews. Those are the guidelines of the Levites. Try to understand. You make a reference of the set apart as set apart. Set apart are Hebrews. The understanding of Hebrews, Levites. Those are Levites. So when you read Hebrews, you are reading the work of Levites. The understanding of the Levites when they are servicing in tabernacles. So Yohanan was in the first holy city, and then there were those 7 cities that were in sin. Smyrna, Ephesus, Philadelphia, so on and so forth, 7 cities in Asia Minor. Those obviously were blind of what they should be doing. So you find then Yohanan in the first holy city during the time where then he gathered the Megillas, or the records of Shaliach Shaul and the other Shalishim. Then he made an entire Megillah of the understandings of Ruach HaKodesh on how they should perform the services in the tabernacles. That's why you have Hebrews. But it's not Hebrews, it's the Levite services. So then, what does it state in the 8th chapter of Hebrews? What is then Yohanan is explaining? Because what you read in the Levitical understanding of the second tabernacle services is then the Messiah chastising the people of those places where you can find the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd chapters of Galah or Revelation. Then you find Yohanan giving them Hebrews, Levitical services of those 7 cities. So during the time of Yohanan there were 8 holy cities. 7 the Messiah then selected for the vengeance. The 8th city was then Yohanan's city. There is no name for it, but we understand he was in a holy city of his own. because he received these understandings via direct vision. Visions are only given in a holy city or holy cities. Dreams are outside of the holy cities. That's the distinction of dreams and visions. Ezekiel had a dream. He was in exile in Babylon. So was Daniel. Daniel had dreams. It was very often his custom of going then to the river, take a walk to the river. He would sit over there by the river bank and he would take a nap. While he was taking a nap, he was then having a dream. In these dreams, then he would have visions of heaven because he was in exile. Same with Ezekiel. You have only visions when you are in a holy city. So then we understand Yohanan, he was not on the island of Patmos writing. He was in the first holy city, organizing the entire understanding of the second tabernacle services, and then the Megillas were delivered to those 7 cities. Obviously they got straightened out, and thus established their relationship with the Gentiles and tabernacling. And this is what is returning. Tabernacling of the Messiah. Is that going to be a third temple? No. Let's understand why. Let's make an analysis why there is not a third temple. 8th chapter of the Levitical priests' services. This is what you are reading. Hebrews means Levites. You are reading the services of the holy tabernacles, of the second tabernacle services, because we are then reading the first anointing for the second tabernacle services. We understand there is a second anointing during the time of restoration. This time we are living at this moment. After 2009, we in an instant entered then the time of reduction and restoration. Why? Because the 1,000 years of Nahashatan had ended. So then, 8th chapter. So the whole is this. We have a high priest who is seated on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in heaven. This is what Yohanan is saying to those 7 cities. Yohanan is explaining, this is the whole situation that you have to be concerned with. You 7 cities over there in Asia Minor, you are in sin. The whole situation is this. We have a high priest who is seated on the right hand of the majesty in heaven, and he is the minister of the sanctuary. Read what Yohanan is explaining. He is the minister of the sanctuary. The Messiah said in the 24th chapter later regarding many of these areas of the holy cities. He did explain them. You have to understand how to read it. In this particular instance you find, and he is the minister of the sanctuary of the true tabernacle. So the Messiah is tabernacle. You can't have a Messiah without tabernacle. We were born during the time of the seat. A Messiah outside of the Holy of Holies, non-existent, does not exist. Thus the time of the seat from 1009 to 2009, 1,000 years of Satan, Nahashatan. We are returning to the holy services. Is there going to be a third temple? No. Absolutely not. Why? Because the Messiah is the minister of the sanctuary of the true tabernacle, pitched for Elohim and not man. We understand the earth never experienced vengeance. Yahweh then does his work when every word came out of his mouth, then is completed. Yahweh himself said, not a word that comes out of his mouth returns to him undone. What was the Messiah then explaining to those people of the law and the scribes in the 23rd chapter of Metichiahu? Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, these do and observe. Is there going to be a third temple? No. Read what the Messiah is explaining. He is the minister of the sanctuary of the true tabernacle of Elohim. Pitched where? Where did you find the tabernacle of Elohim? In the desert. Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, these do and observe. Why is he used Elohim? Because Elohim is the plural word for spirit. 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. There are no gifts of the Spirit. Those were concocted during the time of the seat, 1,000 years of Nahashatan. That's where you got your false Bible. 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. Word of knowledge, word of wisdom. Then you find miracles, and then you find prophecy. Discernment of spirits, tongues, interpretation of tongues. 7 spirits of Elohim, 7 functions. So then the Hebrew people, those enlightened by the Messiah doing the second tabernacle services, are involved with 7 functions. What is the Messiah explaining? And he is the minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle of Elohim, pitched for him in the desert, and not man. And not man means no temple. The first temple was destroyed. The second temple was destroyed. Is there going to be a third temple? No. Until the closing of this age, won't be a third temple. Because vengeance is coming. The earth never experienced vengeance. And must not be built by man. There it is. And not man. What Yohanan is saying is this: don't be concerned with those people of the past. Let's read then the 24th chapter of Metichiahu. Metichiahu was a Levite. That's why you have the first Megillah of your understanding of salvation through a Levite. 24th chapter. Then you find the starting of 24th chapter. What is going on? The Messiah then is in a temple teaching the people. What was the perfect understanding of the Messiah? Was it a temple? No. He should have had himself in the tabernacle of the desert. Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, these do and observe. The temple was a gift from David. Was not the tabernacle. Were they obedient? No. They were not obedient. That's why the whole problem started, because though David had great intentions, ended up being work of the flesh. That's why then you read in Hebrews the Levites not made by man. There is no tabernacle related with the temple. Either you understand tabernacle or you understand temple. Those can't be mixed. Then you understand. And then the Messiah went out of the temple to depart, and his disciples drew near and were showing him the construction of the temple, as if the Messiah did not have the knowledge. There they were again. The Messiah is explaining, and there is an anointing upon the Messiah for the development of the understanding of the Torah, and they got excited. As every time when there is a person speaking of Yahweh and the holy anointing, always people get excited, but they always are driven by their own lusts. There it is. The Messiah is already detecting they are driven by their own lusts. So they had taken him out. He was up on a mountain, and they were showing him, do you understand this temple, Yahweh Yeshua? And they want to make him king, because the Messiah was explaining of the kingdom to come government. They did not understand timing. The timing of the Hebrews was mixed up with the time of Shlimon. And then the Messiah said to them, behold, don't you observe these? Can you observe what you are speaking of, this temple, those stones? Truly, the Messiah is saying, not one of them is going to be spared. Not one stone shall be left upon another. Every stone is going to be thrown down. The Messiah is explaining, what you want from your understanding, it's not going to take place. The temple is going to be destroyed, and it won't be rebuilt. The Messiah then is in charge. What did he say then at the end of Metchiahu? The authority was given to him in heaven and earth. Go therefore around the world and form tabernacles. Do the continuing of the work of Yahweh. Is that going to be a temple? No. The Messiah already said the temple is done. Not a stone is going to be left upon another. But then some people say, oh, but haven't you not read yet in Revelation that is a section of there of the temple? No, that is not a relation with the temple. What you are reading is Ezekiel's understanding of the building of the new earth's capital. That's what you are reading. When you are reading the understanding of Revelation regarding this, in quote, temple, are they doing what Moses told them to do and observe? Are they doing what Moses told them to do and observe? No, because the temple was not mandated. The temple was made by man. This is what the Messiah is explaining. So then, the Messiah continues, and while the Messiah was then on the Mount of Olives, his disciples then drew near in a word saying among themselves, so then speak to us, what do you think is going to be then the coming of these end of this age? So they came to their senses. They began to understand where the Messiah was coming from. But the boys who were explaining is this, if it's not going to be this way, then you becoming king and then taking over the entire city and doing what you said, what is it going to be like then? And then the Messiah already was then very upset with the group because they were in the wrong side of the situation. What did he say? And the Messiah answered and said, be aware, let no man deceive you. What you are speaking of this temple is from man. That's why the Messiah said, not a stone is going to be left upon another. The Messiah does not want a temple. He wants obedience of what Yahweh said for them to do and observe. And the Messiah answered and said, be aware, let no man deceive you, for many will come in his name and deceive many. For you are bound to hear of revolutions and rumors of war. So what kind of wars and rumors is then the Messiah speaking of? What kind of set of problems he's explaining? He's explaining of wars and rumors of wars related with those people against the holy understanding of the tabernacles. the lack of understanding of the tabernacles is going to cause a lot of rumors and a lot of wars, and rumors of wars. The Messiah is not concerned with the wars of Gentiles. It's not part of the tabernacle understanding. For you are bound to hear of revolutions and rumors of wars. Watch out and do not be disturbed, for these are required for you then to understand and go through them. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Then you begin to understand. Later he explains. Nations then against nations. After his holy tabernacles are then set in place. After. You have to understand steps of formation. And there shall be famines and plagues and earthquakes in many places. But these are only the startings. So then we begin to understand what the Messiah is explaining. Then later he explains, and if those days were not shortened, not any of you. The Messiah is not explaining not any flesh. He's explaining, if anyone should say to you then the Messiah is there or he is in any other place, don't believe it. Prior of these, he's saying, if those days were not shortened, none of you would survive. What is the context of the entire understanding? Why is the Messiah saying flesh? Is he saying of every person on the planet? No, he was talking about his own group. They were in the flesh. They were deceived. When the Messiah detects the person then of his very own, they are deceived, then they are in the flesh. They are speaking of their own junk. So it's not any flesh of any kind of a person or Gentile or set apart alike. He's explaining, you people, you disciples of mine, you are in the flesh. You don't know what you're talking about. The Messiah then is in charge of the Holy of Holies, and he does not want a third temple. What he wants is obedience, because vengeance is coming, and in order for Yahweh, the Creator, to come through his Son, has to be done as per instructions. That's why then his people are going to be disciplined, as you can understand from Shimon. Is that going to be a third temple? No. He's not going to have a third temple. What they are building over there is going to be thrown away. The situation is going to become so confusing over there, they're going to start throwing things around. And then it's going to have a simple tabernacle as it was during the time of the desert. That's it. This is what it takes place during this time, in this age, until this world then is finished. Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, these do and observe. Nah, but what about the temple in Revelation? It's not temple. What you are understanding is Yohanan had a vision and an understanding of Ezekiel, the 40th chapter. And what does a prophet then receive? He received a vision of the understanding of the stick. And a stick was given to him, and he went out to measure. What was Yohanan's vision of the 11th chapter? And a stick was given to him, and he was then measuring. Is that the temple? No, it's the new capital of the world. The kingdom to come government. There is no third temple. The Messiah is in charge, and he said not a stone is going to be left upon another. And then Yohanan saw the understanding of Ezekiel, because he was in the spirit. What was then the motivation of Ezekiel? Ezekiel was in Babylon. He was then in exile. After more than 20 years later, when the city was leveled, the city of Jerusalem, and they were taken in captivity, Yahweh then had taken him out in his spirit while he was resting and showed him a vision of the new capital of the world. And he went out to measure then the building of the new capital. It's not temple. Why was this? Because then when the Babylonians came and destroyed the city, the people of Yahweh thought the world had ended. Their world of what Yahweh the Creator had promised had ended. This is what they thought. The covenant was gone. Whatsoever Yahweh promised was gone. The city is gone. The temple is gone. They were taken to captivity, and then there was nothing else left. There was not yet the spring feast completed. The Messiah was not even in sight because it was then centuries later. How could Yahweh then draw the focus of these people away from their desperation? By showing them the new capital of this world. Because their world was ended, and Yahweh was saying there is this new world coming, the kingdom to come. So then Yohanan saw the same vision of Ezekiel, and it was given to him a stick. He went out to measure it. It's the building of the new capital of the world when the earth is then restored. However, when this age then is finished, prior of the ending of this age, what's going to have in the Temple Mount is the simple tabernacle of the desert. Whatsoever Moses told you to do and observe, this do and observe. And then there is another section where we then get back to the understanding of the person that went through trials and tribulations during the entire life. And then his life was a misery during his time on the earth. He died, and then he believed what Yahweh had said, and he was saved. He was in the bosom of Abraham. He was truly in the bosom of Abraham. There are many understandings of these, because then rich people always trying to be always on the side of convenience. And the Messiah said it is very tough for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Because they want the niceties, they want the conveniences of this planet. And then, what was the understanding of this topic? Then, it was said, they have the prophets, they have the Torah explained, and if they don't change their ways, even if you would return from the dead, they would not believe. There are people listening the truth from the Torah, believing Torah, what the Messiah is explaining, yet they mock. They make fun of it. They laugh from behind. If a person comes from the dead, as the rich person in torment in Sheol was asking, what was the reply? They have the prophets. They have the Torah, the living Torah, the spring feast. They understand the autumn feast, the prophecies, and they don't believe it. If a person comes from the dead and is trying to explain it, they would not believe it. They would be mocked. So is there going to be a third temple? No. It's not. Whatsoever they are building over there in the Temple Mount or in the land of Israel is going to be thrown around. What is going to happen at Temple Mount at a certain point is going to be the temple that Moses told them to do and observe. not above, not below. Time of restoration explains what was already set in place. This time is going to be done per instructions. Because Yahweh is coming and vengeance is coming, and there is not a section, not a character of the Torah that is going to be left undone. That's why when you read in the 8th chapter of Hebrews or the Levites, you read, not made by man. The Messiah is in charge of the Holy of Holies, and he's going to do as precisely as how Moses told him to do and observe. Because Yahweh is coming through him in order to do the vengeance. It has to be done as per instructions. Is there going to be a third temple? No. Temple is made by man. Please stay tuned, much more coming up.